Hey Tony, how you doing? Can you hear me, Tony? Oh, Tony is connecting to audio. Oh. Hey Tony, how you doing? I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
How's that?
There you go.
Good
Good.
morning.
I just
Thanks
wanted
for
to
the
say
invite.
long time no see.
It's been a while. Yes, yes. You're looking well.
Thank you. You too. You
Hey,
look young, but you look younger than the last time I saw you.
well, hey, it's partial retirement and getting back into the fray.
Okay, good. I'm going to pause this and then we'll be back in at round nine. So
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. good to be back at the Freight Committee. Some familiar faces.
Hello to everybody online. We're just gonna wait a couple more minutes here, just waiting for a few people to trickle in. Wow. All right, hello, everybody. This is the fall Capital Region Transportation Council Freight Advisory Committee meeting. Can somebody online just give me a thumbs up that they can see a slide that says Freight Advisory Committee and that they can hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
We can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Just a couple administrative updates here before we get into the agenda. As you might remember from the August meeting, we have rebranded from the Capital District Transportation Committee to the Capital Region Transportation Council. We have a new domain name, which is capitalnpo.org. We have new email addresses, and the old ones, I understand, will work for a certain amount of time and then they won't work anymore, but the email addresses are similar to the old ones where it's first initial plus last name at capitalnpo.org. So for example, mine is tbauer at capitalnpo.org. Our social media channels are now all at capitalnpo. And one other slight change from the last meeting is we'll be streaming these Freight Advisory Committee meetings on YouTube. So I'm trying that as a test this time, and hopefully I won't screw it up. But I think it's streaming on YouTube now, so we'll have it there too. And that's all part of an updated public participation policy, which is coming in 2024. All right, so here's a look at the agenda. First on the agenda, we have welcome and introductions. If you're on Zoom, if you wouldn't mind, for our record keeping in the chat pod, please put your name, your title, and your organization. The information that we need for our federal reporting. And in person here, we'll go around the room. So I think I know everybody here. I'm Chris Bauer. I'm Director of Transportation Planning here at the Transportation Council.
Greg Wurtzer, Region 1 DOT Program Manager.
Valerie Dean, Region 1 DOT.
Mark Landgraf, retired DOT Rail.
Peter Comenzo, Town of Rotterdam. John Scavo, Town of Clifton Park. Tom Warner, representing Saratoga County Mountain Policy Board.
Jacob Beeman, Transportation Council.
Lou Esposito, Supervisor, Frenchtown, OOIDA.
Good morning, Andrew Tracy, Transportation Engineer with the Transportation Control.
And for the folks in the room, I'm going to circulate a sign-in sheet if you wouldn't mind to spell that out here. And start again. All right, so moving into the meat of the agenda here, our feature presentation is from New York State DOT Region 1 and their consultant Parsons on the Reimagine I-787 health study, which is a pretty high-profile project. I'm sure most of you have heard about it in the news. So I'm going to stop sharing here and give the folks from Parsons, hopefully they have the ability to.
Probably Howard, right?
And so Howard should be able to share his screen now, or maybe it's Jason. Should I make a?
Yeah, no, give me 1 sec. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if who was going to be sharing here, so let me.
There you go. I can see your screen now.
Okay, so you see the
I just gotta
title
get it.
slide here.
Yep, just hold on 1 second before you start here. This right here. All right, take it away.
Yeah, actually, I'll start.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm Greg Rich with DOT, but most of you don't know me. And I'm one of the co-managers of the 787 Reimagine study. It's a Pell study, planning and environmental linkage. And I'll pass it to Howard to introduce the team that's online from Parsons. They're our consultant that's helping us run this whole thing.
Sorry, just trying to get there. There we go.
I'm Howard Unger, from Parsons, as Greg mentioned. I did see that Jason Hilton from Parsons was also on, and since I'm not looking at the participants right now, but rather the PowerPoint, is anyone else from Parsons on?
It might just be me and you, Howard. I think Frank couldn't make it today.
Oh, he couldn't? Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, I thought originally he was gonna be on. All right. Well, it may just be the two of us then.
That'll work. That'll work for sure. All right, well, I can get started. We can hit the next slide. We can kind of pass this around for who's talking. So let's see. If you want to hit the next slide there, Howard.
Yeah.
So the Pell process outline, yeah, you know, this is the basic outline of where we're at. The green means stuff that's well underway. So there's data collection, traffic data, analysis of existing conditions, initiating public involvement. You know, we've had a series of public meetings starting back in the spring. A lot of this public involvement and input feeds into crafting a purpose and need and objective statement, which we're starting to draft now. And we're also into concept development. So we're in the early stages of sketching concepts on paper of various ideas we want to evaluate further. And then the dark blue are things that come later that will evaluate the concepts based on social, environmental, and economic impacts. Then based on all that analysis and more public outreach, we'll complete a Pell scoping Pell report or project scoping Pell report. And all this work can help fuel an eventual NEPA process should we find further money to implement concepts we've run through. So next up, I'll talk about the study area quick. The study area is really all of I-787 except for the piece from the thruway to the port at Albany. We kind of intentionally stopped at the port with the intent to maintain internet access to the port, you know, from the thruway and such. But the remainder of 77 is in the study area. As you can see here, all the way up to where Route 7 is, where I-787 basically ends. And the study scope, this is born. The study scope is born out of the prior, well, what was CDTC at the time, the Hudson River waterfront study. If you wanna, yeah, there we go, perfect. And the prior study, you know, it was a great study that identified a lot of ideas. It didn't have the resources to really dive deep into various things that need to be solved. So with this Pell study, we're hoping to dive deeper into these four analysis areas that were previously identified. One being the CP rail facility that runs down the middle of I-787. The 787 Dunn Memorial South Mall interchange. That interchange, you know, represents a piece of aging infrastructure, and in many folks' opinion is possibly overbuilt. And then the third area is the Albany Inner Harbor or historic district development concept. This includes things like a potential, like I said, Inner Harbor, the canal idea out there, and possibly other historic district ideas. And then area D, the fourth area, is really a catch-all for everything else. What other ideas do we conjure up through this process? And then we'll evaluate those. There's ideas coming out of the woodwork from various municipalities, and we'll get into that as we go. Next up, I'll have Howard or Jason talk about outreach activities.
Yeah. Well, so there's been a bunch of outreach activities that to date. You may have seen, there some things that were publicly advertised, large meetings open to the general public. There's also ongoing series of municipal partnering meetings. We've begun some coordination with the state and federal agency stakeholders, and as well as several past and ongoing and future coordination meetings with the Native Nations. So it's going to be a comprehensive public outreach process. It's going to continue, throughout the study at different intervals for the different types of meetings. And I think you'll see on when some of the larger meetings and things are going to occur on one of the upcoming slides. We've dived into a large amount of public comments already, I think, based on the initial large public meeting and some of the smaller, more focused meetings. We've received, I think, more than 1,000 public comments to date on what people really envision they would like the DOT to do with this project. We have not presented because things are still in the very conceptual stages. We haven't presented any actual alternative concepts yet. But as Greg said, since things had already been presented in the previous study, people are somewhat familiar with what types of things are being considered. And here you see sort of in somewhat of an order, not necessarily in order, but the main themes that we're hearing over and over again, including waterfront access and bike and ped connectivity, and various other transportation and economic related themes that we're getting from the general public, from stakeholders, from municipalities, et cetera.
Right. So the project timeline, this is a vague timeline with a whole lot more pieces of tasks in between all of these major points, but we officially commenced the study in April of this year. As many of you are aware, in the spring we initially did several public meetings, both published and then into the community groups, as Howard hit on about the community outreach. The summer, fall, we're really fall of now, and we're in the initial concepts development phase, and that's a very interesting time right now of trying to put pen to paper on ideas and find connectivity and flaws and what can we do. Through the winter, spring, we're going to continue to refine these concepts with the anticipated idea to present concepts to the public in the spring with an initial, I'll say, pros cons analysis of each concept. What does it do to traffic? What does it do to connectivity? What does it do to waterfront connectivity? And present that in the spring and get the public reaction. That's the goal. And then through the summer, and fall, we'll have to meet again with various agencies. We'll honestly probably come back to folks like you folks here at this table and various other stakeholders to get feedback on the concepts, the pros, cons, to fuel more of the commentary of things that we, as much as we can think of a lot of things, we can't think of everything, so we're looking for feedback. And then in the fall, we'll draft a report out for public review, have a final public meeting around that topic, and then at the end of 24 have a final Pell report. And as you see at the bottom, basically public involvement is remaining constant throughout. There'll be periods of more and then periods of less, but it is an ongoing outreach effort for sure. So then, and then the design concepts. Like we hit on, the major question we have to answer is, besides I-77 as a obstacle to the river, the rail line is another obstacle. We're all aware they frankly park the trains there as a staging, and it is another impediment to getting to the river. So we're looking at various ideas there on how to mitigate that problem, if possible. Is there a solution? The Dunn South Mall, as I alluded to earlier, the footprint of this interchange is massive, and a potential modernization of that interchange could significantly reduce the amount of bridge deck area we own, and that would both renew the infrastructure, possibly reduce the footprint, and provide perhaps another connection option for other modes of transportation. Of course, we have to look at the boulevard options and the impacts of such, and limits of where a boulevard could possibly work. Again, in the early stages of drawing this stuff up, and then it leads to the impacts that it causes. Other ideas are highway capping or potential land bridges. I'm not sure anyone envisions capping the entire highway, but there's certain potential land bridges at strategic points could really provide some much more user-friendly ways to get across. And then of course the Broadway Canal. There's a few options of Broadway Canal concepts that have been floated in the public that we're going to try to evaluate the pros and cons of such. So that's the design concepts, and of course, all of this leads to the gazillion-dollar question of what's it do to traffic? So,
Yeah, and well, I think that's the gazillion-dollar question. I think the gazillion-dollar question you hit on is how to work around or with the railroad to make something happen there. So on our traffic study, we're undertaking a few activities now. Just give you kind of idea of where we are and what we're going to be doing. We've already started out assembling a bunch of available traffic data. And we just completed the collection of new project-specific data to update the available information. So we've collected starting at the end of October into early November, new traffic volume data, travel time data, queue observations in the corridor, including for the volume data, vehicle classifications and trucks, so we can get an idea of the vehicle mix. But we're also working with CRTC's regional travel demand model, and we've been coordinating with Chris and Chaim and others at the MPO on using that model to really help us understand the regional and the local trips within the corridor. Maybe we really obviously need to understand that before we make any modifications to access to the highway, or modifications to the interstate itself, or scaling back or introducing new interchanges. Really have to understand where the traffic's coming from and where the traffic is going to. So we've already started digging into all of that trip information that's already presented and contained within the regional travel demand model, and that's going to assist us in developing the roadway concepts, and it's also going to be used to screen a long list of concepts. So right now we have a whole bunch of things on the table, where we really are just starting to look at boulevard concepts and different configurations for the big interchange, and what can we also do to maybe improve connectivity with the local streets whenever you're going to consider a major project like this to reimagine, a major highway corridor. Inevitably, there's going to be improvements that need to be made. It's not just going to be on 787 and at the major interchanges. There will likely be some sort of improvements that need to be made for connectivity and access and circulation along the city street network. So we're just kind of getting into that now, and we're starting to use the regional model to test some of those options and just see if there are fatal flaws. But we're also developing a mesoscopic model, a VSIM-based model, where we've extracted a sub-area network from the regional model, and we're taking that those trip tables and the origin and destination information and building that into a smaller model. It'll still be very large because it's going to cover a pretty large area, but not the entire area that the regional model covers. So we can look at things in a little bit more detail. And we're going to be, so we have a lot of that put together already. We're going to take the new traffic data that we've just collected, once that's summarized and in an appropriate format, and that's going to also be used in that meso model. And so after we use the regional model to screen the long list of alternatives, we're going to have a shorter list of concepts, and we're going to use this meso model to help refine those concepts. It's going to be a very iterative process, and to ultimately screen the short list of concepts into what will ultimately go into the Pell report, and potential feasible concepts, at least from a transportation standpoint, that can be studied even in more detail and advanced as either a large project or several separate projects. And in addition to traffic considerations, we're going to be doing a bunch of environmental screenings. This is not it's not an EIS or an environmental assessment at this phase. So we're going to cover the range of topics that you see here, and we're going to do screenings, and not going to go too in depth. And also we're collecting, and we've collected a bunch of information on each of these environmental subject areas. That's also going to be used to help develop and the alternatives, as well as screen them at the end, because we're going to need to know if we're planning to realign something, or build something new, take something away. We don't want to adversely affect a environmental justice community. We don't want to be building roadways through the major historic neighborhoods, or compromising historic resources. So these environmental data collection efforts and screenings will be used to both help guide the development of the alternatives along the way, and then go into a final screening to come up with the feasible projects that may be able to be advanced. So I think that really wraps up, Craig, the few slides here. You want to open up the questions? So that's basically where we're at this stage. Just a grand overview of how far we've come so far, what to expect. So are there any questions or comments at this stage for us? No.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
This is Jose Holguin from RPI. What I gather from this is that basically the intent is to remove freight facilities from the river. Could you clarify that, please?
So we have no intent to do anything at this stage. We are evaluating all sorts of concepts. You know, there is a community desire to improve connectivity to the river, between the city and the river. And one obstacle of that, there's two major obstacles, it's I-787 and the railroad. If we're gonna, you know, evaluate major modifications to 787 such that you could cross the roadway in a boulevard,
Mhm.
again, this is not it's not ahead of any other concept at this stage. We have to evaluate it thoroughly. But if you want to cross a potential boulevard, but there's a railroad in your way, we have to look at, is there a feasible way to get the same freight service in a different route? So it's not an intent, but we have to answer the question of, is it feasible to still service the freight rail without, in a different configuration? It may not be feasible. I mean, these are the questions we have to answer, but. So we don't have any direct intent, but these are the questions the community's been asking for years, and we're tasked with answering them. But can we, at some level, possibly make these improvements?
Yeah, because basically my concern is basically that it is important, I mean, to have access to that freight facility, have access to the river. And not only the railroads, but maybe others. Right now, in New York City DOT, basically issue a request for information for potential implementation of water transportation to from basically to New York City, and this is something important. I will basically suggest that whenever you're doing these things, you take a look at the what has been done in the city of Paris. In Paris, in fact, if you have a minute, I could show you some slides that I use in a webinar I gave for TRV about freight efficient land uses. Paris, basically very close to the center of the city, they have managed to have access to freight facilities in a way that the community have access to the river, and basically you might want to take a look at that, because basically there are ways to do that. I mean,
we appreciate that. We're not proposing any modifications to the Port of Albany. We're just trying to figure out to ensure that access is maintained there regardless of modifications. So the Port of Albany is
no, but the port of Albany is basically one node, but there are basically a number of businesses that also rely on the river. You see, and also this is the point. You need to my suggestion is to try to reconcile and freight activities with the surrounding environment. You see, and basically what I'm advising is to take a look at the international experience in these matters. And I will be more than glad to show you materials at your convenience. It could be done.
Yeah, we appreciate that. I'm making a note of it now. Yeah.
You see, that's my point is that in the era of climate change, we should do all we can to foster sustainable models, and water transportation is one.
Yeah, I think we have to also keep in mind that, you know, the purpose of this project is to reimagine, you know, as it's titled, I-787. We want to make sure that we don't preclude, you know, by doing anything to the roadway or rail facilities, preclude any other development or any other, you know, modes of, whether it be, you know, water transportation. So yeah, I think it'd be helpful to have that information, you know, so that when we're developing these concepts for the roadways, that we can, you know, keep those kind of things in mind, so we don't, you know, propose things that may, you know, ultimately, you know, preclude, anything else from happening along the waterfront.
That is the point. But
Right.
that requires to have an understanding of what could be done.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It should probably be noted from a railroad perspective too, that the clearances that are provided between Schenectady and the Port of Albany utilize the portion down the middle of 787. And GE, at the request of GE, New York State DOT cleared up the clearance profile to an exceptionally wide 16-foot by 16 feet on top of a 4-foot high flat car that would have to be maintained. GE ships about 50 dimensional cars a year that go to the port that utilize that oversized clearance envelope that's not supported by alternate routes to the port.
No, that's good to know. I appreciate that.
Any other comments online or in the room? All right, well, thanks, Greg.
Yeah.
And DOT Region 1, and thank you to Howard and team at Parsons for your presentation. If you don't mind, I'll include the presentation in the notes. I guess one question I have is, for folks who want to be more involved and keep up on the study, what's the best way for them to do that?
Two ways. The website or our email. The made both very easy. It's the website's just 787.dot.ny.gov, and the email is 787@dot.ny.gov. The email goes to myself and my co-project manager Kelly, and the consultant has eyes on that too to see comments as they come in. The website is updated with some frequency when public meetings are coming. Hasn't been updated in probably a month or so, but it'll start getting updated again pretty soon as we get going again on more public meetings and such. So those are the two best ways. And there's a comment form on the website that also goes straight to our consultant, and we really encourage written comments. Anything you think of, feel free to write it in and let us know your thoughts, things we thought of after today. So we appreciate it. And tell anyone and everyone that, to participate, provide your feedback, and we're happy to hear from you.
Yeah, and I would encourage you to take up Dr. Hogan Barris that has offered to talk about what's happened in his experiences internationally, and I can make that connection if you like.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I didn't want to get into the weeds here of getting into that, but I appreciate the commentary, and any slides or information you can point us to, we'd appreciate having. We'll connect to Chris.
Great. I'll make sure I make that connection.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. All right, so moving on in the agenda. Next, we have an update on the New York State Freight Transportation Plan. And I believe Dave Rosenberg is on the line. So Dave, if you want to unmute, you can go ahead.
I am. Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. This is David Rosenberg speaking from New York State DOT. We are updating the state freight plan. We're in a different schedule than most other states. Most other states have updated their state freight plan, but we are in the process of updating our state freight plan. Our next meeting is going to be on truck parking. We're going to look at demand and supply around the state. It will be a virtual meeting. It will be held December 12th at 2 p.m. We certainly are looking for input, especially from industry. If there is anyone at this meeting that does not have an invitation to our next meeting on December 12th to look at truck parking, you can let me know, or you can send a note to Chris. He can certainly find me, and we can get you a meeting invitation for that. We also just put out a survey about 10 minutes ago for folks to provide input for a truck parking issue or potential truck parking opportunity. And again, we'll be looking at demand and supply around New York State. Recognize that CRTC has done a truck parking study. We have taken a look at that as well as we look at the data. And we will break into regional groups. So if you attended our second meeting, we broke into regional groups. And Western New York, basically Rochester West. Central was the Pennsylvania line to the Canadian border, incorporating ID1, an area a little bit east and west. Capital region would be I-84 north to the Canadian border. And then we'll have a New York City, which would be I-84 south. So we are having a truck parking meeting with the update of our state freight plan. And I'm going to concentrate on that for today. And if anyone at this meeting would like to attend that meeting, please let me know. And I know we've talked about truck parking for a long time. And I think we have some opportunities. And that's what we're looking for is input at this meeting. So with that, Chris, I appreciate the time to provide an update. And I'll send it back to you. Thank you.
Dave?
Sure, go ahead.
Dave, did you say, this is Lou Esposito here, did you say 2 p.m.
Yes, sir.
on December 12th? Could you
Yes, sir.
send me information on that then?
Give me that again, Lou.
Could you send me, remind me around December 12th? Will you be sending out
Sure.
information?
Sure.
Email?
I'll put a reminder note for me to remind you. Did you
Thank
get
you.
the invitation, Lou? Did you get the invitation? I think that's the first question. Did you get the invitation?
Not too late for the last meeting. I didn't read it in
Okay.
time. Sorry, I
Do you
didn't
have the
have time.
invitation
Oh,
for
oops.
this meeting, Lou? Do you have the invitation? That would be the first thing. Or should I send it to you?
Send it to me to remind me. I
You
appreciate
got it.
it.
You got it. Yeah, I know, Lou. I need reminders too, so I will certainly send that to you. And if anyone else would like to, you can let me know or let Chris know, and we'll certainly invite you. And again, Lou, I'm also going to send you the survey. And Kendra, you have the survey, but I'm going to send it to you again. And if you want to send that to your members, we're looking for input, especially from industry here. So we're going to try to keep you reminded of this. So again, David Rosenberg, New York State DOT, and back to you, Chris. Thank you much. Thanks for the time today.
All right, thanks, David. And obviously, a lot of big doings at New York State DOT right now. Encourage everybody to stay engaged with that plan as well. And as Dave mentioned, if you're not plugged into that and you don't know how to do so, you can contact me as well. I'd be happy to get in touch with you. So, all right, we'll go ahead and move on here. If there's any other thoughts about state freight plan. All right. All right, next we have Tony Vassal on the line, our old friend who is back on the committee. He's now at his new firm, Transportation Services of America, I'm sorry. And Tony's gonna give us a high-level update on what's happening in the international maritime industry. So Tony, if you wanna unmute, you can go
Can
ahead.
you hear me?
We can.
All right. Good morning, folks, and thank you for that introduction and invite, Chris. Good to be back. As Chris mentioned, my name is Tony Vassal, and my company, AJ Vassal Associates, performed the worldwide sales and marketing for the Port of Albany for 25 years. Then I joined staff with the Port of Albany for a little over 9 years as business development manager and retired. And since then, I'm an Army veteran involved in intelligence, and I am a member of the American Legion, helping get books to veterans, and also working with the buddy program to help fellow vets. So I got tired of being retired, and I wanted to get back into the fray again. So recently I accepted a position with Transportation Services of America, a company that's been 44 years in business. They're based in Edison, New Jersey. They're an asset-based third-party logistics company providing various transportation services, drayage of containers, movement of trailers domestically, cross-dock, all kind of various services. So I just want to cover today two items. Number one, the supply chain as it applies to Asia and to Europe and the rest of the world. And also something that may be taking place next year is the possibility of an international longshoremen's ILA strike. And the first item is the supply chain. And the supply chain has been somewhat righted for the most part since COVID, particularly from the standpoint of pricing. Containers were $8,000 to $20,000 during COVID, and the carriers made baskets full of money. And so now the prices are back down to pre-COVID levels of $1,500 a container. So what's this caused is there's a lot of overcapacity in ships. So in the Far East or Asia to the West Coast, for the most part, the carriers are pulling back or canceling sailings so that they could fill up the existing ships. And basically the same thing is happening on the East Coast from Europe to the United States, canceling sailings. And so in other words, business is down both from a revenue standpoint and from a volume standpoint. Now, what does it look like down the road? 2024, a lot of people are penny, the sky is falling. Well, if you look at it comparatively, when you're making $20,000 a container versus $1,500, yes, the sky is falling, but it's pre-COVID levels. So that's a brief overview of what's going on in the supply chain from an international standpoint. And then another major factor is the International Longshoremen's Association. They're the people that unload the ships, and in this particular, it's only the container. It's from Maine to Houston. 45,000 of the 70,000 ILA workers are involved. And now these individuals loaded and unloaded ships during COVID and basically risked their lives. And so what their president, Harold Daggett, has said, we haven't struck since 1977, but there are two factors they are concerned about. And number one is automation. They're concerned about the automation situation, and that's at the top of their priority list. And one that's very close to that is remuneration. Their counterpart on the West Coast, International Longshoremen's Warehouse Union, went on strike for 14 days. That's from Asia to the West Coast, Long Beach, Seattle. And, allergies. So now with the ILA on the East Coast from Maine to Houston, they're rattling the saber and saying, if we don't get 25 to 35% in recognition of our work during that time and other things that develop, they are indicating they may go out on strike. So those are the two main things I think that are going wrong right now. And any questions?
Question for Tony?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Tony. And welcome back to the group, and we appreciate your continued involvement, and we look forward to maybe one of these meetings we'll get up here and we'll get to see you in person.
We're looking forward to that, and thank you once again for the invite to return.
All right. So moving on now, our next agenda item is Andrew Tracy from the Transportation Council is going to give an update on a project that we heard about a couple meetings ago, which is the congestion management process.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Andrew Tracy, and I have an update on congestion management process. So the draft report for the congestion management process was approved for public review at the November Planning Committee. Just to jog your memory, this is one of the federally required planning processes that MPOs of our size need to go through. The purpose of the congestion management process is to identify congested locations, in our 4-county planning area and to identify the appropriate strategies to treat congestion at those locations. So we completed the draft report. You can find it on the new CMP webpage, which is up there on the slide, and I'm sure Chris can circulate this link if desired as well. capitalmpo.org/2023 CMP. So the draft report includes maps of the congestion data, lists of congestion management strategies. It has a programming and implementation section and a next step section as well. The CMP is meant to be maintained as an ongoing planning process that we continue through the years. So if you go to that link, you can view the draft document. You can also view an interactive map of the congestion data. And there's also a survey that you can take there. I was going to ask for your help in disseminating the survey. However, the Times Union has done that for us, and they've done a very good job. As of yesterday, we had 208 survey responses, about half of which mentioned Hoosick Street or Hoosick Road in some capacity. So I'm wondering what happened there. But if you'd like to take the survey or help us spread it to new communities, we would appreciate that. The link to the survey is on that website. We're in our 30-day public comment period now, which ends on December 1st. So if you have any written comments for us, please send them. There's an email address you can use up on that page, or you can send comments to Chris or I. Any comments on any portion of the draft congestion management document, we would appreciate. I will note that the comments that we received at the Freight Advisory Committee meeting where I presented, all of those were summarized and incorporated into the body of the document in the Freight stakeholder outreach section. So we appreciate all the comments received. That was all I was going to provide. Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Andrew. And I will circulate that link after the meeting as well. All right, next up on the agenda, we have a clean Capital District Clean Communities update from Jay. Should I go to the next?
Yeah, just go to the next slide.
All right.
So we aren't really working on any freight specific projects right now with the Clean Communities program. So I figured I would just give a little update on an alternative fuels funding opportunity that's currently available through DOT. So this is the CMAQ program, or Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Improvement Program. It's a combined solicitation with their carbon reduction program money and TAP money. So a lot of you in the room might be familiar with this for bicycle and pedestrian projects and intersection improvement projects. But I just wanted to point out that it is, or there is eligibility for alternative fueling infrastructure and electric vehicle charging as well. So I guess just right to elaborate, it is a federal fund source with an 80% federal share and 20% local match. And this particular solicitation, they're looking for projects between 500,000 and 5 million. Next slide, Chris. So again, just wanted to point out the reason why I bring it up, and I've brought it up in some of our Clean Communities meetings. I always feel like, right, this is one that at least the communities around our table, we're pretty familiar with it as an opportunity for bike and ped infrastructure and things like that. But there are other eligible projects, one being freight intermodal improvements as well. So not necessarily on the alternative fuel side of things, but just freight intermodal projects in general. And then in addition to that, there is eligibility for alternative fuel and clean vehicle projects such as EV and green hydrogen fuel stations. And then also on the bottom, you'll see there's vehicle refueling infrastructure that would reduce emissions from non-road vehicles and non-road engines used in construction projects and port-related freight operations. So this funding opportunity is open for electrifying port operations and off-road vehicles, as well as EV charging for municipal facilities. And it is in there, it is only the charging. Vehicles are not eligible under this opportunity right now. And then again, so unfortunately, this is, well, unfortunately for our private sector side, this is a, kind of municipal focus. So eligible sponsors are more local governments and government organizations. However, non-governmental organizations could apply if there was a, partnership with, the community. Next slide, Chris. So just some deadlines, if you all are already familiar with this or looking into this, so that it was released back in September. November 28th is the deadline for, there's a pre-application process, which I do believe is optional, but recommended. They provide comments back to the sponsors, and those comments would be received back by December 12th. And then the final applications are due on January 9th. So that is all I had, but just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention that electric charging is an eligible project under the CMAQ program, as well as other alternative fueling stations as well, if that's something that your community is looking at right now. Great. Thanks, Chief. Questions?
I just want to note that you are required to attend that informational webinar, but since it's passed, you can email them and they'll send you a recording of it.
Good to know. Thanks, Han. All right, great. And I'll make sure I include that link as well. All right, so that's the end of our agenda. As far as action items, and I'm going to add a couple here that aren't listed. Obviously, encourage you to engage with the Reimagine I-787 study, and take a look at the draft congestion management process document and provide comments to Andrew and I, or anybody here, whether we can get to Andrew for the CMP. Also, we'll add to that, if you're interested in CMAQ, I'll send out that link, and the survey for New York State Freight Transportation Plan, we'll send that out as well. So we'll try to do that soon in the next couple of days. Our 2024 meetings dates are up there. The next meeting is going to be February 21st. And I will send out some save the dates by the end of the year. Other than that, I appreciate everyone's time attending online and in person. And I hope that everybody has a happy and healthy and safe holiday season. And we'll see you in 2024. Thank you.
Chris, could you include me on that December 12th?
Sure.
Park study, please?
Here.